They stood side by side, facing the men. "Get out now. Security are on their way," shouted Franco, moving towards them. The fat man chuckled. "Funny as it may seem, Mr. Rossellini, but we've heard that phrase a few times before. Let's face it, son, no one is coming. Do as we say and all will be fine. Pinky promise. Gentleman to gentleman." The fat man beamed at him. The others stood their ground. Franco had no way of getting past them to the lift. His mobile was on the coffee table. One of the men noticed him eyeing it. They leaned over, grabbed the phone and threw it, smashing it against the wall, its pieces scattered. "Well done, Stevie. Forward thinking. I like it," nodded the fat man. He turned to Franco. "Look, we have no beef with you, Franco. Your team isn't that bad, to be fair." "Top of the Premiership," interrupted Steve, excited, nodding at Franco. Fat man turned to look at him. "Did I ask for your input, Stephen?" "No, boss." "Then shove it up where the birds don't sing," he blasted, turning back to Franco. "Sorry about that, Franco. I've got a puppy like him at home. He gets overexcited. Now, where were we? Oh, yes, we just want the boy. Hand him over and you all live. Simples." Tara gasped. "No chance," said Franco. "Get out of here and you live," waving his knife at them. Tara joined him. The men laughed, then quietly pulled out handguns and screwed on silencers, trumping the bread knives. "What do you want with him?" shouted Tara, trying not to freak out. "Our boss wants him. We do as we're told," said the fat man. "I don't get involved in the nitty-gritty, not my business." "Who is your boss?" "Can't tell you that, miss. Something about a tooth for a tooth." "Is an eye for an eye, boss?" said Stevie. "Yes, that's what I said, Stevie," the fat man barked. "An eye for an eye." "And," said Stevie, oblivious to the annoyance in his boss's face, "Franco asked if he wanted coffee. Maybe he was expecting someone else. Maybe security is on his way." The fat man closed his eyes, holding back anger. "Who's your boss?" repeated Tara, glancing down the hallway. Una had opened her door and was silently waving a phone at her, mouthing that she'd called police. Tara, in that moment, loved that woman more than ever. The fat man stepped forward. "Now, I'd tell you, but then I'd have to beat you up." "Kill you, boss," corrected Stevie. "It's, I'd tell you, but then I'd have to kill you." Fat man shook his head, fed up with being corrected by a smart-ass. He pointed the gun at Stevie's head and fired. A gentle thud filled the air and Stevie dropped to the floor. A mist of blood splattered the pristine apartment and the four men around him. Used to the fat man's behaviour, the rest of the men didn't flinch, except for one to mutter, "Guess I'm not going to get that 20 quid he owes me." "Fuck," said Franco. "What the hell did you do that for?" Taking his chances, he charged forward, his knife held high, ready to strike. Being a footballer, he was fast on his feet, but not fast enough. As the knife swung down, aiming for Fat Man's neck, Fat Man calmly lifted his gun and shot Franco in the temple. His forehead burst open, adding more blood to the scene. Franco dropped to the ground. Tara fell to her knees in shock, her mouth open in silent scream. "This couldn't be happening. No, no," she wailed, barely able to breathe. The male to the right of Fat Man said, "Come on, boss, let's get that kid and get out of here." Fat Man turned to him, waving his gun in his face. "You know what, Rocky? I've had enough of you lot telling me what to fucking do. Just 'cause I'm getting old, you think I'm past it? Are you after my job or something, eh? Well, fuck you." He lifted his gun and shot him in the head. More blood sprayed Fat Man, the walls, and the remaining two men. They looked nervously at each other. The boss was losing it. Tara screamed and screamed. She crawled to Franco, hugging him, rocking him, willing him into life. Fat Man bent over and effortlessly threw her back into the kitchen. Her head hit a counter with such force she passed out. "Silence." "Right," said Fat Man. "Let's get some decorum here. Sydney, you go sort out the old bird, the nanny, get the boy, grab some nappies, food and shit, the stuff that kids need." He put a finger to his brow as if remembering. "And a teddy bear. I loved my teddy bear." He smiled, content that he was being a benevolent, thoughtful, kind human being. "And Sancho and I will grab whatever items are lying around ripe for the picking. He's got a nice watch, I wouldn't mind that, and his bird has a nice ring. My Lucy would love that. These footy boys are loaded, and he ain't going to miss it where he's gone. Perks of the job." "Yes, boss," said Sydney, wiping a hanky across his face, trying to see clearly. We'll need that baby seat. It's not legal to drive a baby without a car seat. Fat Man looked at him aghast. We've just killed 4 peeps, Sidney. A poxy baby seat will be the least of Mr. Plod's problems. Besides, we've got a few blacked-out windows no one will notice. 3, boss, piped up Sancho, pointing to Tara pulling herself up off the floor, panicking, unable to breathe, needing to get to her child. Franco's bird is still alive. Tara looked down the hallway. Una was on her stomach, stealth-like, pulling herself along the floor with a small gun in her mouth. Creeping towards them, she put a finger to her lips, telling Tara to be quiet. Tara gave her a look of gratitude. The woman was a goddess warrior. Fat Man sighed, lifted his gun and shot Sancho in the head, then realigned, aimed, and shot Tara in the head. Yeah, he muttered. Like I said, 5 dead. Get to it, Sidney. Sidney shook his head and sighed. The boss was definitely off his rocker, but he took solace in the fact that since he no longer had a driving license due to a dangerous driving charge, he needed someone to drive, so Sidney was safe. For now. He stepped over the bodies, wiping his chin. Sat at traffic lights, covered in fresh blood splatter, would not be a good look for fellow motorists. The boss would have to sit in the back seat with the kid. He didn't like kids. He wouldn't like that. It was the small things in life that gave Sidney joy. Trying to keep from screaming out, Una reached the end of the hallway and peered into the living room, her heart pumping. She'd just watched her beautiful niece shot dead in front of her. She wanted to scream, to run at the Fat Man and smash his face in, but she didn't. Survival mode kicked in. Donald needed protecting. Sidney walked towards her, busy with his face. The Fat Man bent over Franco and started to undo his wristwatch. Still lying on the floor, she wriggled into position, lifted the gun with outstretched, shaky hands, took aim, and fired. Twice. She shot Sidney first, and the Fat Man second. They didn't see it coming. 2 bullseyes to the head. She was an ace shot. Her gun didn't have a silencer. Hopefully neighbours would have heard the shots and called police. Her torso dropped to the floor. Her body shook with grief. The lift doors opened with a ping. Titan and 2 bodyguards walked into the room. They stood in shock. They thought they'd heard gunfire when in the lift, but put it down to clunky old lift clatter. Bodies were strewn, walls were wet with blood, and Una lay on the floor, sobbing. The 3 men pulled out their guns and crouched, ready to search. There's no one else, Una whispered. Only me and the baby. Everyone else is dead. Can you get us to an airport, please? Titan ran to her. The others checked Franco and Tara. Who are these guys? He asked, checking her body. Are you hurt? I don't know. The Fat Man was the boss. The others he called Stevie, Rocky, Sancho, and Sidney. She let Titan help her to her feet and pocketed her gun. Never go anywhere without it. She tried to smile. Us oldies tend to be invisible. They didn't see me coming. The 2 guards stood up and looked over at Titan and shook their heads. Franco and Tara were dead. Sirens could be heard in the distance. Let's get you out of here, he said. Una spotted Franco's folded paper on the countertop, splattered with crimson blood. She opened it, read it, and put it in her pocket.